So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use masking tape as my little barrier for the resin so that it doesn't leak past certain areas. Doot, just like that. I'm going to use aluminum tape. Boom. This is aluminum ducting tape, which is amazing if you want to create metal surfaces. I wouldn't recommend coating like whole things with this because it looks weird. So I'm going to use metal tape. I changed my mind. Well, I'm going to use masking, but then I'm going to use metal over it. I'm going to use a smaller piece of masking. And to stabilize it and resist heat, I'm going to use aluminum tape, which I've never done, but I know it'll work. It's just aluminum tape. So we're going to do the aluminum tape thing. And this will definitely not curl because of the heat, and this stuff is nice and strong. So this is actual, well, it's like tin tape, I guess, or foil tape. But this stuff is really cool to mess with. There's all kinds of things you can do with it. Oops. And I've already done that. It's all right, I can unroll it. I can do it. Obey me. Okay, there we go. So we're just gonna do this, and I'm gonna reinforce it with aluminum tape. And I'm not worried about it marring this up since I haven't painted it yet. And I'm just gonna use this to kind of, the aluminum tape has a structure to it. So we'll just do this, and I can kind of push it up against this, and it won't curl back at all. So the masking tape will pull away from the resin better than I think the aluminum tape would. Don't use duct tape. Duct tape will melt. But masking tape and painter's tape, blue painter's tape, are heavy duty enough. And if you do this aluminum tape, it should work great. So these cups, I will have a link for these cups below. I get these in packages of like, I think 100 off Amazon or 80. These are great. So the best way to mix this stuff so that it cures nice and evenly, thank you, Wife Vegeta, is to, and I'm pretty sure this is just a 50-50 mix, right? It doesn't say it on the back, but in the printed instructions, this tells you mix equal parts of A and B, pour them together and mix them, and then it shows them pouring it immediately after that. What the instructions inside the box tell you is mix A and B and stir it, then pour this into a fresh cup, and then finish stirring, and then pour that out. The reason being is, if you didn't perfectly scrape the bottom and sides of this cup when you did the initial pour, the mixed stuff will be in the stuff that is properly mixed will be in the center mass of the cup, and the outside edges will be where it's not thoroughly mixed. So if you then take your mix and pour it into another cup fresh, the center mass is what will dump out, and you'll leave behind the stuff that's not properly mixed, increasing your chance of a good cure, an even cure, and a good pour, and leaving the stuff that maybe didn't mix as well out. That is you don't have to do that if you're confident, but it is a way to ensure you have the best cure possible. So your resins, this is pretty good. These are like, this one's sort of like thick oil. This one's a little bit thicker than that. This is good, but the thinner you get these, the less bubbles are going to get trapped. So if you have these at a higher temperature in your room, then say 65 degrees, these will probably not trap bubbles in the thickness and the viscosity of it. So one way you can cheat these is you can put these in warm water and like put these in cups of warm water and let them get thinner and then pour them. The problem with that though is if you get them too hot, like if you have like 90-degree water, it'll once you pour them in and start mixing them, it'll actually accelerate the curing process. So it's a little bit of a two-edged sword. If these are too thick, you might trap bubbles. If they're too thin because you heated them up in like water baths, you might have resin that doesn't cure properly. So this is a good temperature. I feel like, I don't know what it is in here. Let me look at my thermostat, I'll tell you. 78 degrees in here. So these are sitting at about 78 degrees right now. I would say these are basically perfect. I mean, they could be a hair warmer, like 80, 82 degrees. But you got to read the MSDS for each thing. That's the material safety data sheet for each resin, because they're all going to be slightly different. But a good general rule of thumb is if your resin is between 70 and 80 degrees, you'll probably do okay. Unless it's a thicker or heavier duty resin, then you might want it warmer, or you might just have to get a pressure pot or a vacuum chamber to extract bubbles pre-pour, as long as it's not a fast curing resin, because if it's a fast curing resin, extracting the bubbles will make it cure faster. So I actually had that happen where I was extracting bubbles and I did not know that, and my resin like half cured in the pressure pot. So yeah, just some things to look out for. But what I'm gonna do here at 78 degrees is all doable at room temperature with just this stuff off the shelf without any crazy tools. So this is, I feel like, what most of you are gonna use this for, and I'm gonna use this for. So everything else I'm talking about is doing like special stuff like casting in silicone molds and making things like big objects and things like that. That's more what you need to worry about that for. So anyways, 4 ounces is what we're gonna do. So 2 ounces of A and 2 ounces of B. Come on. 2 ounces of A. Exciting. Watching a dude pour liquids. Make sure that's 2 ounces. It's a half a millimeter over. That's fine. Go. Do what I say. There we go. Another little trick is if you pour the A side in first and then the B side, and you're worried about leaving scrapage on the sides that's not evenly mixed, pour yourself an extra 1/10 of an ounce of the A side to accommodate for that, because it's really the activator that you need to have in the right proportion to make sure it cures correctly. If you have too little of it, it won't cure, or it will cure too slowly. If you have too much of it, it'll cure too fast. If you have a little bit too much of the A side, like a little bit too much, it's probably not going to make too big of a difference if it's an equal pour style of resin. If it's a by weight resin, forget everything I just said. So stir and stir slowly. It's going to get cloudy, and then it will get clear again as it's mixed. So you'll see it get cloudy. I'm going to scrape the sides. This is not a fast curing resin either, but it can cure fast in this small volume here. Let me just do this. Boop. So it'll get cloudy and then it'll get clear again. Not all resins function this way, but this one does. We've been trying to reach you about your Diorama's extended warranty. Just kidding. I feel like watching this happen is like probably like a visual ASMR video, so I felt the need to do some type of quiet talking. And I am really not seeing many bubbles form. There's micro bubbles, but not a lot of them. So slow, and you need, obviously, if you're going to do a slow pour, you need slow curing resin. If you use like, you know, a lot like liquid plastics that cure in 30 seconds, then it ain't gonna work. But this is doing okay. I'm gonna scrape it again. Scrape down the sides, scrape the bottom. See that? Now it's getting clear again. It was sort of milky. That's when it's starting to combine well. So that's one of the ways with this specific resin, not all resins, but this specific resin, that you know it is combining well, is it went from milky to pretty darn clear again. And see, this says crystal clear, meaning you can see through it, but it still has a yellow tinge. This will become, yes, less yellow as it cures, but it is still slightly yellow because it's meant to cover like pine boards, which really, it's designed by the manufacturer to accentuate the color of pine or maple or whatever wood it's on as a tabletop resin. But I like this color for, you know, brown and earthy tones and greenery. I think it looks nice. So see that there is micro bubbles in there, but those are going to come out. They're so small, they're going to come out, and they're already sort of see that they're already rising to the top very slowly. I would describe this as a light honey mead color. It looks like the mead that I get when we go down to Apple Hill, which is a wine area in Northern California. They have one brewery in the wine area, and they make mead. They have a mead cave, and they make honey mead and blackberry mead. This looks a lot like the mead. Very tempting to drink this right now. That would be very bad for my organ health, but it's tempting. I don't really drink anymore though. Okay, let me move these out of the way. And I'll do what I said where I mixed it, and I'm going to pour it into this cup. Mixed. And this will also allow a few of the bubbles to escape. Micro bubbles while bigger bubbles form. That's okay. Okay, so now we've poured that center mass into this. Some of the micro bubbles went away, some bigger bubbles formed. That's okay. I think these are all going to come to the top. That's what happened. It looked like this when I poured it for my space bamboo diorama, and then they all went away. So I'm not worried about it. If it was colder, I would put this in the pressure pot or in the vacuum chamber and pull the bubbles out that way. I'm going to start on this side and work my way over. And continuous stream and moving this way. Oop, your comment got in the way of my pour. What are you doing? No. Yes, you're right. I'm about 4 inches away from the dia right now, and you are right, sir. If you pull away from the piece and pour a longer stream, some of the bubbles will evacuate the liquid as it goes down towards the diorama. 100%. So, yeah, that's looking pretty good. Well, I might not need to do 2 pours at this rate. Oh, that looks so good. See, now that it's poured, it looks less yellow, right? That's what I'm talking about. This stuff is very odd. So, oop, that was a big glob. Yeah, a thin long stream will minimize bubbles. I forgot to say that, and I appreciate you saying that, because I probably would have forgot to say that. Absolutely. So satisfying. And here's how we find out how level my diorama is. So I'm just going to let that stuff go under the pillar. And that looks like that's pretty good for this side of the roots. And we'll mix up another one for that side and see how it goes. What is the purpose of life is to see the work of your hands and see that it was done well and be satisfied with the work that you've done. I very much believe that. If you're happy with what you're doing and you're satisfied with the work that you've done, that is one of the greatest happinesses, or according to Troy, at least in this context, the greatest happiness. Living your life, being happy doing it. I hope that's what you're getting at. Please add clarifying comments if I'm way off. I appreciate your support, man. I really do. Thank you for that. If you're happy doing what you're doing and it's not encroaching on the happiness of others, and it's safe, then be careful. Be mindful and be careful. That is pretty much exactly what I wanted to pour. I don't think I need any more than this. Resin! And I'm finding out that my diorama is a little bit low on this end. You see how high the water's coming up over here? It's a little lower over here. So I probably won't. I could tip the dio up like that, but I'll probably just leave it, honestly. We did it! You guys are awesome. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for taking that ride with me.